Hello and welcome to a Conquest read-through and impressions video for the Weaver Courts update at the end of April 2026. I've been given some very gently early notice of this update by the devs. Guys, thank you very much as always. And so we're going to chuck them up on screen and have a read-through line by line, trying to get a first impression about how the faction will function after its rework. Now, that means I'm going into this pretty blind, which means there is every chance I will make a rules mistake as we go through this. Bear with me if I do. We will try and come out of this with a little bit of tea leaf gazing about what Weaver players can expect moving forward into the game. Bit of context before we start. I'm not a Weaver player, but I have played against Weavers a lot. One of our best local players is a Weaver player, recently travelled down to a 2-day event called Clash at the Coast, and to give you an idea of where the faction is currently sitting, his only goal was to not come dead last, which he accomplished. Well done, Michael. And with that as the backdrop for this update, safely being able to say Weavers need a little bit of work relative to how they were introduced to the game, let's jump into the updated file and take a look at what we're working with. All right, the Weaver Courts, blah blah blah, fluff, blah blah blah, rules. The seasonal court battlefield roles are spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Additionally, the words spring, summer, autumn, and winter are used as descriptors for spells and abilities connecting them mechanically and thematically. Cool. The cycle of seasons. Weaver Courts ignore the effect of hindering zonal terrain. When a friendly Weaver Court regiment performs a clash or volley against an enemy regiment. So first significant change. The friendly regiment gains a seed marker. A friendly regiment can have a maximum of 3 seed markers at the same time. Gains a fourth, it's immediately discarded. If a friendly regiment is destroyed, you immediately redistribute any seed markers to it to other regiments within 12. This is a very significant rule change. Now, we're going to have to jump further down and see if blooming works basically the same, but assuming that it does, I like this as a change. It's going to mean that there are going to need to be rules throughout the document that make it easier to gather or redistribute seeds, because having every one of your regiments pick up 1 seed each time you attack means that the ability to reach a bloom quickly will be slower, but as long as there are some rules that allow redistribution or something, it'll be at about the same pace. I like this because it means that you aren't asking your opponent to track effects on those regiments. This happens a lot during play if you don't play against Weaver Courts much, and your opponent has these like little unobtrusive markers to mark seeds, you kind of just forget that they're on your units and you leave them behind. I am used to playing against Weaver Courts now, and I still have games where like a little dice that my opponent is using to mark a seed, I just don't move it. It's not my thing. I don't own that little piece of marker. And so I leave it behind, and then 5 minutes later we go, ah shit, who did that belong to? So this is a good change. I mean, looking at the law, it's completely incompatible with the law, but I don't care about that. Army follows cycle of seasons, thematic representation, blah blah blah. At the end of the new change. At the end of the first round's membership change, select a season from which the cycle will begin. Starting with round 2, at the end of each membership phase, it moves spring. So this is a really big change as well. Previously, you were locked into always starting with spring. Now you can start with whatever you want. It's going to be difficult to tell exactly what effect that will have, but I just like that as a general change. It's probably small, but it opens up a lot more in the way of builds that can theoretically exist, because you're going to want to hit certain seasons on certain turns, and so now you might have, theoretically, you could have a winter army that actually wants to hit winter more quickly or a little bit late, or an autumn army that wants to hit winter, on turn 2, or autumn wants to hit autumn on turn 2. So you get just some player choice there. So all right, I like both of these. I like the seed change for thematic reasons, and I like the season change for mechanical reasons. Moving on, if you've chosen blah blah blah, spring and so forth. If your opponent is also weavers, you each have a separate cycle. Yep, makes sense. Depending on what the season is currently on, all friendly regiments belonging to a matching court gain season-specific bonuses called seasonal effects. Alright, what are the bonuses? These apply to friendly regiments. Spring, +2 March. Summer, Shock. Autumn, Culling. Winter, Dread. And Culling is a new special rule. Enemy regiments that are below starting strength reroll successful morale tests against impact attacks and clashes performed by regiments with this rule. So you count as attacking in the flank. If you hit a regiment without a resolve characteristic, it just suffers additional hits instead. That's a little bit awkwardly worded, but we know what that means. This is a really, really significant change. This is a really significant change because previously these were bloom effects. You had to jump through a ton of hoops to get access to these, and the rules were weaker as well. Now, what is gone is the old rule where if it was your season, models of that season, models of the court belonging to that season got +1 march. That's gone now. So hypothetically, for example, autumn regiments in autumn season used to get +1 march. Now they don't. But these passive bonuses do not have to be activated, are always on during the relevant season, and are way stronger. In terms of like the old Weaver rules, I would explain it to new players as your opponent's going to fuck around with these things called seeds, they'll do a bunch of bookkeeping, and then nothing will happen. Once per game, they might get shock on something, and once per game, you might deal with dread. That was like the net effect of the entire Weaver army rule in most games. Now, actually, this is really significant. Like summer regiments getting shock during the summer season, spring regiments getting +2 march during the spring season. I think the weakest, I'm actually not even sure which is the weakest of those. I think culling is probably the weakest, and even it's really significant sometimes. Like it's almost better against animate vessels, Old Dominion, than it is against models with a resolve stat. But plus March, Shock, and Dread are all excellent, and culling is probably quite good. Just looking at this, I don't know if you want to go all in on a court or have a few different courts so you've always got something popping off. Both of those could theoretically be interesting options. I think we'll have to see as we scroll down whether they have the ability that they did in the previous version of Weaver Courts to like lock in and hold the season for a couple of rounds. So, next thing, Bloom. If a regiment has, so everyone gets the Bloom draw event. If the regiment has seed markers on it, remember you can have up to 3, you can spend them to gain one of the following effects. Also, regiments may have access to other unique Bloom effects because of their own innate abilities. So, 1 seed marker, command stand adds +2 attacks, or if it already has barrage, +2 shots. Cool. That's fine. 2 seed markers. Okay, so I'm going to assume that every single Warlord has a Bloom ability, and we can spend 2 seed markers to access it. Neat. And then 3 seed markers gain the battlefield role matching the current season. Okay, that kind of answers the question as to whether or not we want to focus. Because theoretically, everything in the army, if you have enough seed generation, and if there are ways to spread seeds around, because if a unit has to just get 3 seeds by itself, that means attacking 3 times, and that's not enormously likely. But assuming we've got good seed manipulation, you can theoretically give Court of Summer to your winter cavalry in the summer season, and now you have shock impact cavalry. Okay, 3 seeds is probably a lot. Let's see how much seed generation we get through. This is an enormous increase in power, though. Like this is a huge difference between the previous army rules, which were effectively do nothing most of the time, and this. So that's a big shot in the arm. And I think what that means is that I'm not going to expect to see loads of stat changes. There were a few regiments, having spoken to our local Weavers player and having played against them, with the current army rules, like the dancers, not the dancers, the scale, the dragonfly ladies with the whips, whatever they're called, where you look at them and you learn their points cost, and you're just like, they're like 6 wounds, right? Like defense 3, and they're not. Their stats are just absolute trash. I can now see them kind of justifying those stats a little bit more. Those would still be kind of a little bit weak, but they've got access to so much more power out of the army rule. Kind of similarly, a unit that I'm interested to see how they change the stats for are the Ant Soldiers, the Morrowind, because that regiment is one of the most, right now, with the current army rules, is one of the most overcosted regiments in the entire game. But now we can give it, theoretically, any of Dread or +2 March or Shock or Culling, if we can pop seeds onto it and then Bloom. Although I do note that Dread as a draw event, like Winter is probably going to be a good court to pick because you want Dread active all the time, not as a draw event. Defensive abilities are better if they're not activated. Anyway, overall, very interesting. This is really promising, both because it's much more powerful, which Weaver's needed, but also because it does something, and there's play and some mechanics that you can work through. We might, over the long term, run into a little bit of an old Woodrun issue, where Woodrun chants and stuff have had to be adjusted over time. There were issues that the Woodrun ran into in some of their earlier incarnations from a design perspective, where they had to balance every single regiment, assuming they could access a certain amount of cleave, etc. And they've found a good middle ground with Woodrun now, I think, but that was kind of an issue for a while. We might see that repeat, where you have to assume that every single regiment in Weavers can access shock, and so question mark, question mark, question mark, balance effect. But cool. All right, promising. Let's move on. Supremacies. So, the Morshi, Reaper's Bloom. First thing we get is the Warlord's Bloom effect. 2 seeds, cleave +1 until the end of the round. Okay, neat. Activated. The current season counts as if it was autumn for all purposes. This does not change the cycle of seasons. This might be one for the Weavers players to answer whether or not that replaces the current season. I think it does. But anyway, until the end of the round, the Warlord's Bloom changes as follows. So it counts as autumn, and then autumn being giving the culling. And then the regiment gains cleave +2 instead. So for 1 turn only, you can change your bloom effect to, for 2 seeds, +2 cleave. +2 cleave is a lot, and it's +1 cleave the rest of the time. So we can play the Morshi and be like, hey, our entire army can access cleave. There are a few regiments where that's a big deal. So, the Runshi, Warlord draw event. Subtle, blah blah blah. Active, also always active, Warlord's Bloom effect. Target non-monster regiment heals 3. So this non-monster regiment heals 3 wounds. Okay, so for 2 seeds, you can chip heal. Every regiment in the army can recover a stand with 3 wounds. I think the most wounds on a stand is 6, so you can heal back even the Cran Guardians. But that is just chip healing. Till the end of the round, and then so activated. Current season counts as if it was spring, that's +2 March for spring regiments, and then changes the heal to 5. I don't hate that. I think you can probably do a chip heal kind of list. I don't know if I like that as much as plus cleave. I think plus cleave is probably like big and decisive and interesting. Probably the only issue with plus cleave is that you have to make sure you have the necessary seeds in place to benefit from it. Whereas the healing is likely to naturally become useful at about the same time as you have the seeds on you. So, okay. Next we have the Taoshi, Reigning Season. Always active. Once per round at the end of a reinforcement phase, select a friendly non-monster regiment to gain Vanguard 3. Okay, neat. Warlord's Bloom effect. The friendly regiment performing a clash or volley action against regiments that have not activated this round, underlined, gains deadly blades and deadly shots until the end of the action. Okay, so your Bloom effect becomes spend 2 tokens. If you clash or volley an enemy that isn't activated, become deadly. That is absolutely less powerful than unconditional cleave +1, but you get some Vanguard to make up for it. Activated. The seasonal court counts as if it was the Warlord's court season for all purposes. Until the end of the round, you just get deadly unconditionally. Okay, neat. I'm assuming the Taoshi can pick its court. That's what it was before. It looks like it is the same. So this is flexible. I think whether or not this is better than any of the other options, at the moment, all of these look and feel very similar. It's really going to be down to little, like, what's the niche? Do you prefer this slightly? Is the character better? Next we have the Songe, I don't even know how to pronounce, Sianchas Shi. Crop rotation. Always active. At the end of the round's victory phase, you may choose to remove all seed markers from friendly regiments and redistribute them between them as you wish. That's potentially really good. This character is both Summer and Winter Court spells, can perform a free additional spell casting, but can only cast 1 spell from each of the high courts, and your Bloom effect is until the end of the round, the regiment gains untouchable and rerolls failed to hit rolls of 6 when performing clash or inflicting impact attacks. And then you have activated, counts as if it was the Warlord season for all purposes. Okay, we will need to see the spells here, because right now, the Shi's spells are very bad, particularly the Summer Court. The live version of the Weavers, the Summer Court, you could go an entire game without casting a single spell of Summer Court, and you could go an entire game without casting more than 1 spell with Winter Court, and nobody would notice the difference. If the spells are good now, This is probably the best Warlord. There's just so much value in that. The redistribution alone is a huge playmaker. I mentioned that a lot of how Weavers might play based on looking at those first few bloom and season rules is, do they have ways of redistributing or handing out seed markers? Yes, you have literally perfect redistribution from crop rotation. That alone probably just makes this the most powerful Warlord. Unless there are tons of other ways to hand out seeds, I'm pretty much leaning towards this one being the snap pick in kind of the same way that the Maharaja is in Sorcerer Kings. Hopefully I'll be wrong about that. But also you get the free additional spellcasting action, just has to be one from summer, one from winter. And also Untouchable and rerolls is a perfectly serviceable bloom. And then the current season counts as it was. So you don't get any special. We'll scroll down. Yeah, so there's no the activated effect of this. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Xianchoshi. This is the weakest activated effect, but it doesn't make an enormous difference because there's so much value in all of that. Cool, interesting. Characters. All right, let's actually have a look at these now. The Morshi. 100 points, NAF defensive stats, decent Resolve 4 is always nice, 6 attacks on Clash 3 with Cleave 1, Quicksilver Strike, Terrifying 1. Terrifying on a character is excellent, so that's really good. The character gains access to the Seed Bearer combat and out of combat action. Target a friendly regiment within 12, gains a seed marker. Okay, neat. So your character generates. I wonder if we'll see that on more. If this is the case, this is how we start getting seeds in on regiments, and is fuck off, Copilot, I hate you. Is one of the ways we're going to see seed generation. Herald of Everdusk, the regiment this character is attached to gains Terrifying 1. It's got Terrifying. I mean, whatever, sure, that's a nice formalization. I wonder if they change Terrifying to make it so that characters don't hand it out. Either way, excellent. Can purchase 1 Gift of Life Coming and 1 Mastery. Mainstays, Kern Skirmishers, Will-O-Wisps, Weird Cavalry, Skathak Hunters, Restricted. Is that everything else? It's lots of things. The Drakes, Crane Guardians, Galaglass, Fianna Cavalry. Excellent, moving on. So important thing that we're going to see here, this Seed Bearer. We'll see if this turns up on other characters, because if it does, that's a really big deal. 100 points, serviceable, like solid. This is a dangerous enough combat character. Runshi, this is the ranged one. Still has 5 attacks on Clash 2. Barrage 5, 16 inches. I think the current version of the Runshi is only 14 for some reason, so that's a very nice quality of life improvement. Guided pollination. Okay, so they are slightly different. This is not just an everything. So, Seed Bearer, friendly regiment with 12 gains a seed marker. Guided pollination. When the regiment this character is currently attached to gains a seed marker, as well to Clash or Volley, select another regiment within 12 to gain one as well. Oh no, and Seed Bearer. Okay, cool. So, lots of seeds out of a Runshi, because it'll often be going in a ranged unit. And so just out of this character alone in a unit of ranged models, you'll get 2 seeds on 2 different units when you perform a volley, and then you'll get the character's action to get a seed marker as well for 3, and 3 is enough to give the regiment any seasonal court of your choice, so getting those cranked up is a really big deal. Kern Skirmishers, Will-O-Wisp, Sunny Rise Morrowers, Coiled Crane Guardians, Skoth, Galaglass Wardens. Okay, cool. Taoshi, as we expected, gets to pick one of the 4 courts, gets Seed Bearer. So every single character, we might see Weavers, we might or might not see Weavers become a slightly character-heavy list where we can run like 4 characters. The fact that they're all 100 points, where we're looking at a bare minimum of 400 for 4 characters, is like a little bit expensive to do that. But if you want lots of seeds, that's a way of doing it. Completely naff combat stats. This is currently an issue with the Taoshi where it doesn't really do anything, but it does get its own flexibility of court. Planting an ambush, so target friendly infantry regiment within 12. This is a draw event, not an action, so you can do it alongside Seed Bearer. It gives Prowl and Pounce. Prowl, while under the effects of this rule, gains the following. Enemy regiments 8 inches away can't draw line of sight. Now this used to be a inside terrain kind of thing, now it's just cool. You can't see me if you're more than 8 inches away. That's very, very powerful. Does not count towards seizing, so okay, and loses -2 March. And if an enemy gets within 8, it loses Prowl. And while the regiment or character performs a volley of spellcasting, it loses Prowl. Okay, so very, very powerful defensive ability, but conditional. Your opponent can counterplay against it a few ways. Firstly, a regiment that is prowling is slowed down. And secondly, your opponent could get something inside line of sight to strip Prowl so that other things can activate. That's actually just kind of a neat rule. We could see that on some other stuff. And then also grants Pounce. If the regiment has Prowl, at any point during its activation, it may choose to lose it. If it does, it gains Terrifying and Linebreaker. Okay, neat. This is a really fun ability, and it probably justifies the fact that this guy is 100 points for nothing otherwise. Character upgrades, blah blah blah. Mainstay, Kern Skirmishers, Fianna Cavalry, Skathak, Morrowind. Restricted, Scale Dancers, Gemrid, Cran, Clanna, and Scathan. So, Sienna Riders and Scathia Riders seem like they've become restricted. No, they're still Mainstay. So we've got Cania Riders as Mainstay. We've got... that's all. Okay, interesting. So, moving on. And then the Sonshos, Shinshos, She. Wizard, okay, so still Wizard 5. Arcane Harvest. When performing a spellcasting action, you may remove up to 3 seed markers from friendly regiments within 12. That's a long way to friendlies. That's very accessible. Plus 1 Wizard. Now, something to note, if you're going to be the Warlord, you'll have to do that with each spell, so it might be difficult actually to get lots of power. You could theoretically be Wizard 8 for 2 consecutive spells. You would need to suck down 6 seeds to do that. And given how powerful seed effects can be, that's a lot. So, okay, maybe this character actually, Wizard 5, you really are often going to want to go up to higher wizard levels, but seeds are valuable. We will see how good that is. Also, no seed bearer. Not surprising because it's a spellcaster. I think she's going to live or die based on how good her spells are. If her spells are good, then yeah, Wizard 5. I was kind of half expecting them to come slightly better in terms of Wizard, but you can get up to Wizard 8. It's just at significant cost. Mainstay, Kern, Will-O-Wisps, both of the Moths, Weird Cavalry. Restricted, Cran, Galaglass, lots of different things, Gemrid, Fianna Cavalry. Alright, upgrades. Gifts of Life Binding. Now, every single character we just saw can have 1 Gift of Life Binding and 1 Mastery. Bond of Falcons, 15 points, Regiment gains Sure Shot. Cool. Seed of Spring. During Spring, the Court of Spring Regiment you're attached to, so, okay, gains a seed marker at its draw event step. Yeah, okay, so Seed of Spring, Seed of Autumn, Speed of Winter, Speed of Summer. These are very 5-point abilities. You will probably take this in plenty of armies. You might even take multiple of them, but that means that once or twice a game you get some seed. Okay, Forest, this is, yeah, these are filler upgrades, exactly what we would expect from 5-point upgrades. Forest Embrace. The regiment that this character is attached to within the piece of zonal terrain gains untouchable. That's fine for a 5-point upgrade. 15 points, Wild Spirit. When the regiment the character is attached to uses a Bloom Draw event, it can spend seed markers from other friendly regiments within 12. Potentially very useful, especially if you've got a really high priority regiment. You might have, like, again, some cavalry you're looking to give shock to or something. I can see that being relevant here. Glacial Presence. Enemy regiments engaged with Court of Winter regiment you're attached to gains... holy shit. Okay, 30 points. When enemy regiments engaged with the Court of Winter regiment this character is attached to activate, they gain Decay. Decay is auto wounds, and it's a ball breaker, but that is 30 points, and you have to get in touch with them, and then they have to activate, which really means this is kind of just a more dangerous, but more conditional Aura of Death. Okay. I'm going to assume we aren't going to see any, like, Anvil lock-in and hold style winter regiments, even though, theoretically, winter regiments gain dread during winter, which means that a lot of regiments could do this. If there's a way for a character, there probably isn't a way for a character to join a brute regiment, but if there is, and Cran Guardians, so Cran Guardians could be very scary with this. Rampant Growth. The spring court the character is attached to can heal even if broken. That's not worth 25 points. It's a nice ability. It's not worth 25 points. Even in a Runshi Warlord, it's not worth... The only time that might be good is if the heal... No, not even on the heal Drake, if the heal Drake's not going to break. Yeah, this is not worth 25 points. Sun Crown. Court of Summer, regiment this character attached to gains Flawless Strikes. Flawless Strikes is a good rule. If we find a summer regiment with lots of attacks, that's very worth 15 points. Particularly given the summer court is shock, which means you might be able to get, like, Clash 4 reroll 6s into 1s, Sun Crown. This is a very good mastery. Abundant Harvest, Autumn Court currently attached to, gains a seed marker, adds a seed marker to all friendly regiments within 12 after destroying an enemy regiment. Destroying an enemy regiment is too conditional. I would not probably take this. 10 points is cheap. If you have 10 points, sure. That's way too conditional. Alright, so none of these are super high impact. apart from Wild Spirit, which is potentially a really big deal, and Glacial Presence, which we'll have to see, but they're also all cheap, so that's fine. Let's look at the masteries. Ambush, the character gains forward's force, which grants a regiment flank. Yep, 30 points, pretty standard. Drake Rider, Runshi or Morshi. I'm pretty sure this is restricted right now to not both of those, or just one. Maybe it is both. 40 points. The character gains the Rider special rule and can choose a Coil Drake or a Scoth Drake. That's new. Currently, it's only the Range Drake in their warband, and also it gives flank. That's why it's 40 points. That's really nice, actually, because those are heavies, and giving flank to heavies really helps you run multiples of them. Now, 40 points is not cheap, like, because there's no other benefit here. There's nothing special. It's you can ride the dragon and you give the dragon flank, but giving the dragon flank is potentially really good. One of the current Weaver Court archetypal lists is run 2 dragons because they're one of the only good things in the entire army, so maybe 2 of them can carry us through. And having 2 of them turn up at the same time, okay, that's solid. Winter's Bite, the Court of Winter character only. Change type to cavalry, gets +2 wound, impact 4, brutal impact 2, trample 2. Court of Winter only means Tao Shi or Spellcaster Shi, but the Tao Shi is Clash 3, so impact and brutal and trample is potentially worthwhile, and yeah, you can join Gemrid Knights. Sweet. Or theoretically other cavalry. Cloud Seeding. Character mastery can purchase more than once. Character gains fly. Character can be attached to a friendly non-monster regiment with a fly special rule. Changes its type to match the regiment. Neat. Okay, this is you can join moths. You can finally have your characters join the moth regiments. It isn't necessarily fantastic because fluid formation on the melee moths wants you to be 3 stands wide, so that pushes a stand into the back. But this is only 10 points and offers some flexibility. A big problem, like challenge with Weavers right now, is that there's just nowhere to put the fucking characters. Like anyway, you get one character as your cavalry, and with the regiments that currently exist, everyone just goes in the fucking archer regiment, and it's not flexible. So sweet. I don't know if it's good, but you can join moths now. Chitinous Metamorphosis can also be purchased more than once. There we go. Changes type to brute, gains impact 3 special rule, and +1 clash and attacks characteristic. This will let us join the Treekin. That's a big fucking deal for multiple reasons. The biggest deal. So firstly, if you can have Winter Treekin, you get that decay rule, you get an Anvil regiment, blah blah blah. More significant is the fact that in so the big problem with the Treekin right now, the Crown Guardians, they're Treekin, we both know the Treekin. The big problem with Crown Guardians is that their resolve is only 3. And that's like not the end of the world, but cleave 3, so defense 3 and a shield is a nice defensive profile, so is 6 wounds. But the thing about effective defense 4 is that occasionally it just craps out. That's the thing, right? You will occasionally have those clashes where you suffer 10 hits and you just roll statistically badly. It happens all of the time, like across a sufficiently large sample size, and you take 6 wounds from 10 non-cleave hits and go, oh, well, that sucked. If that happens, bad luck spikes are really dangerous because the resolve of the regiment is low. Now we can put a resolve 4 character into Crown Guardians, and all of the characters except the spellcaster are resolve 4. Yeah, impact and plus clash and attacks, like that's nice. That's good for 15 points. Like that's actually really good on the autumn character. +1 clash and +1 attack on a character that's already got cleave and quicksilver strikes and stuff. Quicksilver strikes is whatever. That's sick. That's really good. That also opens up a huge number of builds. Like 115 point character, yeah, who cares? And we can combine it with, like, if we're running like a Tao Shi, for example, and Court of Winter. And so we go Court of Winter, we take the Gift of Life binding that hands out decay to enemy regiments, we put ourselves in a Crown Guardian regiment that can actually hold in place. We pop the Supremacy to get multiple turns of Winter in a row, like Winter, and then we'll chain into Winter. Like we'll pop when it's autumn, we'll make it count as Winter, get multiple turns of Dread. Like, okay, excellent. This is really good and changes how the army can be played. Guide of the Wild March. The regiment this character is attached to gains Vanguard 4. I have no idea how good that will be. That's entirely contingent on what you're attached to, but that's okay for 15 points. Like on rate, the fact that you can hand that out, all right. I would pay that sometimes if I've got a specific scenario plan. Veil of the Undergrowth, infantry or character regiment gains loose formation. Yeah, potentially really good. The limitation on that is it says infantry or cavalry. I don't know how you attach. I don't know how you give this to a cavalry because all of the characters can only have one gift of life binding, and the thing that would let you join a cavalry regiment does not let you pick another gift of life binding. So weird. So I think maybe the idea, I think they think that this is meant to be usable on more regiments than it actually is. But regardless, loose formation, 30 points is really expensive, but there are some regiments, like if you upsize a regiment of a certain type, that could be really solid. All right, cool. The really important ones here are just the ones that let you change how you are mounted. And what we now have is we can have characters on monster bases, characters in infantry, characters in cavalry, and characters in brutes. Excellent. Like, it was weird that weavers couldn't do that. Because the whole shtick is that, like, these elders have bonded to so many different things. Like, there's literally fluff in this document that talks about how the courts are manyed and varied, and a weaver from one court might be enormously different to a weaver from the other. It was super fucking weird that they couldn't just be attached to all of these different regiments. They were just always in Kern skirmishes. It's like this could be an elder that is bonded with the same grove for generation after generation, and this one is like a dragonfly lady or something. But they are all just joining fucking Kern skirmishes. Not anymore. Excellent, really good changes. You do have to pay for the privilege, but it's not egregiously expensive, and especially chitinous metamorphosis, that's worth 15 points, and we can purchase it more than once. Excellent. All right, moving on, the High Courts. What does this mean? Our spell casting. I said that this was going to be important. Let's have a look. Court of Summer. Disseminate. Range Self, Attunement 3. Your next command card is treated as activating during Summer until the end of the round. Summer grants Shock if you are a Shock regiment, if you are a Summer regiment. And so what that means, it's conditional. It is conditional, but that is almost, if you jump through the hoops, unlimited range shock to a friendly regiment. Which, again, jumping through the hoops using army, like it's not actually that, it's using army special rules, but okay, neat. Attunement 3, you need 2 successes, you are Wizard 5. You might be able to cast that without using a seed. None of these are scaling. Interesting to note. Dehydrate. Achievement 3. Target enemy regiment until the end of the round. -1 to march and cannot reroll charge distance. Okay, 16 inches is a really long range. Actually, on all of these, 16 inches is massive. Right now, I think they're all like pissant range. Like they're nothing. These are huge range increases. This is one that you wouldn't want to fail if you need it to go off, so you would have to spend some tokens, particularly since it's likely to be interfered with, but that is a good spell. Heat Haze, achievement 4, 1 hit per success. You probably wouldn't spend seeds on that tremendously often because a seed for 2/3 or a half of a hit, depending on if interference is maybe not a great rate on return. Maybe it is good, I don't know. But it's an offensive spell that can do damage, and this can be Wizard 8. Realistically, I don't think you spew out seeds to make that work, but okay, good. Propagate. Target friendly regiment with at least 1 seed marker. Remove 1 seed marker. 3 friendly regiments within 8 inches gain 1 seed marker each. It is, okay, that's a machine for seed. Because every other character can place at least 1 seed marker. So you will always have the tools to do that. And it's Attunement 4, which means you should not need to spend seeds to boost your wizard up. And this will often create, well, this will effectively create 2, probably this creates 2 seeds most of the time. You can get 3 friendlies within 8 inches of another friendly. Most of the time you'll have 2, but okay, cool, that's a good, this is just a thing that generates net 1 seed per round. Okay, that's fine actually, it's a good use of a spell. You cast this early in the game alongside other characters using Seed Bearer, it's a little bit of a mini game. It might be a little bit masturbatory where I'm like, oh, it's on the first 3 turns and I have to do all of these things I have to spread all of my own seed across all of my own models. Fap kind of thing. But it's not any more than, it's not any more playing with yourself than Old Dominion Power Generation is on the first couple of turns. So, cool, neat, minigame within minigame. These are all of the spells for the High Court of Summer. That's 1 debuff, 1 offensive spell, 1 buff spell, 1 seed thing. Cool. Court of Winter. Wind Terminate. Who named that? Who named that spell? Own up. I know it's meant to be a counterpart to Disseminate, which is the summer spell that does the same. Anyway, your next command card is treated as activating during winter until the end of the round. That is less powerful than summer because, I mean, it's not bad, but remember the differences in the courts. Summer, the court grants shock if you activate at the right time, blah, blah, blah. Winter, you grant dread. Dread is a really, really good rule, but activated defensive abilities have limitations. This isn't a bad spell, but it isn't as good as the summer one. Armor of Rhyme. Ooh. Okay. Range 16, attunement 2. Target enemy regiment till the end of the round. Always counts as moving through hindering, so loses impacts and inspired on the charge. Other enemy regiments cannot march or charge through this regiment. They're like once a game, no, like once every 3 games, this is going to make your opponent want to slit their own wrists. I probably shouldn't say that on YouTube, but whatever. This is going to really, really distress someone once every 3 games, but it is so hard to cast. You can be Wizard 8, and if your opponent is interfering with you, you still aren't likely to cast this spell. And that's probably as it should be, except that makes it very conditional. It's really funny. Like, this is going to just make someone very, very upset if they have, like, some complicated deployment run out and now they just can't do it. But always counts as moving through hindering. Conditional. Again, range 16 on all of these. Mouldering Bloom, Attunement 3, AP 1. That is technically very slightly better much of the time than the Attunement 4 one, except if you're interference, then it's slightly worse, just because of how the breakpoint sum of factors math works. But cool, an offensive spell. If you're the Warlord, you'll often be casting both. And then Dark of Winter, target enemy regiment, so a second debuff, -1 to resolve, and 1 friendly Court of Winter. So you target an enemy regiment, it gains -1 resolve, and a friendly Court of Winter regiment within 12 gains hardened. So that's a really complicated and difficult way of handing out. That's a good spell. This is the kind of spell that you spend 2 or 3 tokens to try and guarantee, and then because it targets an enemy and will be subject to interference and is scaling, you fail anyway. But theoretically, this is a spell that you spend 3 seed markers to force through, because giving hardened to things like Cran Guardians is probably a really big deal. Okay, so both of these courts are very long range and solid, and a mix of buffs and debuffs. A lot of conditional things. I don't know how good this is yet. I don't quite know. So I was optimistic about the Sanshi Warlord, and I think I still am. But she is Wizard 5. You cast Propagate a lot of the time, and just generate seed markers, and that's good. And then you've got all of this choice for all of these other courts. The Warlord gets both courts. The regular non-Warlord, she gets just one. I think Wizard 5 means that I don't know if she's the best Warlord off the back of that. You will cast Propagate a lot. I think Summer is probably the most sensible choice in a vacuum if you are playing a non-she Warlord and you're just trying to pick a court. There's some cool stuff in Winter, and Dark of Winter in particular you could try and build around. But the kind of easier option is Summer, which is thematically appropriate. The Warlord, I don't know. I don't know if having access to both of these, it's interesting. Is it better or worse? Because you could just play the Autumn, the Morshi, and just be like, everyone can have Cleave all of the time, because there's enough bloody markers going around from the looks of it so far. You can just hand out Cleave 1 to any regiment. That seems like it might just be a little bit easier to use than this. But okay, could still well be worth exploring. All right, Infantry, Kern Skirmishers, completely unchanged. Excellent, they were totally fine. When this regiment spends a seed marker, it may re-roll failed rolls of 6 when... Okay, so we do get something. Re-roll failed rolls of 6 when performing a volley. Now, remembering that our seed markers are... Okay, this is actually pretty significant. You will want Kern Skirmishers to spend 1 seed marker quite a lot. Doing a little bit of quick maths, if we compare old Kern Skirmishers, which were just this offensive profile, you'd have 13 shots out of the regiment hitting on 2s or 3s. Now you will have, if you spend one, if you can get and then spend 1 bloom marker, you get 15 shots hitting on 2s or 3s, re-rolling 6s. especially if you have a Rune Shi in a regiment, which benefits from all of those abilities. Well, it doesn't benefit from +2 to command stand, but it does benefit from the reroll 6s, and it's a model with rapid volley. That's good. I think you will only ever see the Runshi joining these guys. In the previous, like you previously saw the Sinchon, the spellcasting she. God, I really need to learn how to pronounce that. The spell she would join this regiment because she had nowhere else to go, but she can join other regiments now thanks to those masteries. But that bloom effect means that the Runshi just makes them self-sufficient because you can prime the pump, right? Early in the game, the Runshi can just be like, hey bros, you get a seed marker and you have that until you need it, and then they can just spend a marker, generate a marker. So this is effectively permanent and passive. If you've got a Runshi in the regiment to prime the pump, you will always have +2 shots to the command stand and reroll 6s, which actually means that they're way better than they were before. You match the seasonal court of your army warlord, which means there are very few seasons that you really benefit. +2 March is quite good on them, obviously, but I don't know if you'd pick a Spring Warlord just for them. You wouldn't. But cool. We will see what a Quinnan Stalker does later on. Morrowind. So these are the Ant guys, and currently one of the most overcosted regiments in the entire game. They are still 160 points. Sorry, I've just looked it up. I was completely willing to believe that current Morrowind were 160 points. They're not. Morrowind are currently, hang on a second, Morrowind are currently 180 points, 60 points per stand, and it does not look like their stats have changed. God, they're so fucking overcosted. 160, 45 points. That is very marginally more expensive than Gilded Legion. They're the same points for the initial unit, 5 points more per stand, but they are a medium, and this is not 100 Kingdoms. We've got all of these army-wide special rules, etc., whereas Imperial stuff in 100 Kingdoms doesn't really get anything. It's a Court of Spring regiment, so +2 speed on the spring turn, and just passively has regeneration. All right, and has parry and support 2 and iron discipline and cleave 1 and unstoppable. Do you know the regiment doesn't currently have unstoppable? God, Morrowind is so bad. Technically, they have a slightly better version of parry right now, but it's really just parry. So they have parry. So yeah. Oh, and they used to have a rule that said you can't generate seed markers. God, they were so bad. No, they still have that. Okay, so seed markers are not generated as a result of this regiment's actions, and characters can't join it. But they have draw event bloom. So they can still bloom, but you need to find a way to give them markers. During spring, they go to support 4. That's really good. Can heal even if broken. That's nice because they have regen 4. If we're playing a Run Shi, then you can potentially heal them for 7 or 9 wounds in a round, which is good. You have to find a way to get seed markers onto them, which means that characters nearby or spellcasters, etc., have to help them out. They're also only Clash 2, but they are Cleave 1, and they can go up to support 4. Well, they were total trash before. Like, they were one of the worst regiments in the game, just because of the points cost, and now they don't cost that, like a whopping discount. They're 20 points off of the regiment, 15 points less per stand. So look, I don't know if this is a good regiment, genuinely. I think parry and defense 3 and the healing means probably that it is. But it is astounding that I am actually just like trying to decide if it's good. Clash 2, again, like there are going to be a lot of cases where these guys are kind of just like worse household guard. But they do have access to much more robust army rules. Regeneration is really, really good, actually. I am at least thinking about them now. And before they were like, oh my god, they were just, hey bro, do you want to play 200 points down? Like I played a game where my opponent took a 6 or 7 strong regiment just to see if they were good. And it occurred to us by like halfway through the game that I was effectively enjoying like a 200 point advantage. It was ridiculous. Anyway, probably okay now, probably quite playable. The characters not being able to join is a thematic thing, I assume, because they're life-bound to ants. Alright, Scathach Hunters. I believe these are the fucking awesome-looking, like, autumn dual-blade bee ladies. Same stats, probably. Movement 6, Clash 3, 5 attacks. Defense and Evasion 2, Resolve 3, so very fragile for a 170-point regiment. But they do have loose formation. Deadly Blades, Pathfinders, Opportunist, they can bloom. While all stands of this regiment are within cover, they gain Tenacious 2 against volleys. That's kind of funny because they have loose formation already, so this gives them a reason to go inside of forests. Makes them very, very... Basically, they're almost immune to shooting at that point. Now, during autumn, they get, in addition, autumn will give the rerolls against enemies reroll resolve rolls when you're clashing them if the enemy is below starting strength. So if we're running an autumn list making use of these, we want some way to chip the enemy down. That could be with spellcasters. A summer spellcaster can probably quite reliably do at least 1 wound to trigger that, or we just used a ranged unit. Regiment adds +3 March, so it's going to be March 9 when performing a charge, and gains Unstoppable. That's really goddamn fast. So, during autumn, these things can fucking burst. That is like well above cavalry speed. There are plenty of cavalry that are not as good as speed 9 Unstoppable, and Deadly Blades and Opportunist. Still fragile, and this is an expensive unit, but okay, neat. Can also take a Cannon Stalker. We'll have to go and see what those do. Alright, up next, Brutes. Cran Guardians, 180 points, 60 points per additional stand. March 6, Clash 2, 5 attacks, 6 wounds, defense and resolve of 3, same as before. They still have shields, they still have Vanguard. So they've gained the Always Inspire special rule. That's presumably going to be very relevant. Yeah, so Rooted Might immediately apply a seed marker as an action to all other friendly regiments within 8. Previously, if you wanted to use this, do they still have... Okay, so they've lost Relentless Blows. So their damage output is absolutely lower than before Asterisk. Because they, well, not really, because they used to have an action to get Relentless Blows, but then you had to do it instead of Inspiring, so it was mathematically very, very similar. Whereas now they've got Inspired all of the time, but that doesn't matter because they can just Inspire. And they I mean, Inspired means that even when they're in combat, they can use Rooted Might to give seed markers to other friendlies. That's fine. That's totally fine. I think the more significant, and they get, if they're completely inside cover, they get Tenacious 2 against volleys, which is very good. The much more significant thing here is that the army one, because they always count as the army warlord's court, these guys can theoretically get march bonuses or shock or the culling or dread, and all of those are a really big deal. And even bigger than that, or as big as that, is the draw event bloom, so you can give them cleave with like the Morshi, for example, or healing with the Runshi, and you can have a resolve 4 character join them. And that means you can get them up to a nice high resolve, and that's the thing that they have been missing to close the loop on their defensive stats. So there are many changes around Cran Guardians. I think if you just took these guys as they are and you dropped them into current Weavers, they would be super mid. But they're not being dropped into the current Weavers, they're being dropped into new Weavers. Vanguard 3 is also really nice because it gives you exactly enough movement to get onto zones that need 15 inches of movement, which is lots of zones. So, okay, 180 points, actually totally serviceable. I could see these guys with a Morshi being excellent. Not even a Morshi, like you could have that be a Morshi Warlord, but literally just take a Morshi, make them into a Brute, have them join these guys, and then whatever your Warlord's court is, yeah, okay, cool. Like, much more usable. Will-O-Wisps, 100 points, counts as belonging to the Warlord's army. Clash 1, 4 attacks, 5 wounds, resolve 2, defense 2, evasion 1. Didn't they used to be evasion 2? So, okay, a little bit of a loss there. Loose formation, lethal demise 2, broadly the same. They can theoretically bloom. That probably mostly matters if you're playing a Runshi, I guess, but cool. Swarm Cloud. Now, previously this gave seed tokens if you shot through. That would obviously be pointless. What does it do now? When a friendly regiment performs a volley action, if it draws line of sight through this regiment, you can have the following regiment spend a seed marker to gain long shot. That puts you at inside effective range, which means if you've got a character that's joined them, like you've got a Runshi, for example, it's 4 additional shots if you've got 4 stands. Okay. They're still a very good blocking regiment, although being defense 2, evasion 1, they're slightly less good than before. I think theoretically you have... I mean, they can gain dread now. The Winter Court Wisps actually is like a massive pain in the dick. That's like funny levels of annoying. And Spring Court Wisps being March 8 just to like goblin around everywhere is kind of funny. I don't know if they are as necessary, for lack of a better term. They weren't even really necessary before. Now you do have to compare them with, what if I just took more Kern Skirmishers? Like, if I'm taking Kern Skirmishers and a Runshi, Do I spend 100 points on wisps to put in front of them, or do I spend 20 more points on just another unit of Kern skirmishers, which the Runshi can also juice up? You only, like, by the time it's round 2, the Runshi will have buffed the first regiment with a seed, and then the second regiment with a seed, and then they're both self-sustaining after that. Longshot is nice, but yeah, bit of a question. I think if I was talking to a new Weavers player, I would say do not spend your money on these just because they are so expensive dollars wise. But think about them as an expansion later on. Early on, just make sure you've got 2 regiments of Kern skirmishers and then buy stuff that looks really cool. Okay. Scale Dancers. Now, these were a regiment that was a bit of a joke, like in terms of they were really rough. Now, how are they now? March 7, that's +1 March. Clash 3, 5 attacks, same as the current profile. 4 wounds, resolve 3, defense 2, evasion 2. Okay, so this is not a durable regiment, same as they currently are, but they do have +1 March relative to, which is good because they look like they should be so fast, and they're like, oh, they're just speed 6. Now, we've gained Unstoppable. Do we have that before? Nope, so that's also a really good rule to add. Parry and counterattack. I think they used to only get this during summer. Yeah, they did, which is, again, a fucking joke. Parry and counterattack all the time. Okay, that and loose formation. So, and fly. Did they have fly before? Yes. This is significant. Parry and counterattack are rules that are kind of cool in combination. But only gaining counterattack during like 1 turn in 4 was so much of a non-burger. Nothing burger imaginable. Okay, cool. So now you always have counterattack. During a summer round, oh, they got double time. Huh, just natively. Jesus, that's really fast on a fly regiment. Holy shit. That's 21 inches of movement. Like, yes, you have to march, 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 but like, that's that's really far. That's really far, guys. That's like not going to matter at all right up until that 1 turn where it does. Like, and once again, if you've won a flank and you're pivoting, or you're just like, hey, guess what? Watch this, and you just march all the way over someone because they have fly. Um, Hilarious, genuinely hilarious. So, draw events, double time, and bloom. You do have to pick. I don't think anything about bloom lets you resolve it in addition to another draw event, but that's fine. If you're using double time, then by definition there is no need to bloom because bloom is all offensive. During summer round, your counterattack causes hits to the enemy on unmodified rolls of 5 or 6 rather than just a 6. Yep, it does currently do that, but you don't have counterattack otherwise. Okay, +1 evasion, +1 attack. So, this is actually really significant. During summer round, genuinely big fucking buffs. Going to 6 attacks, plus any other effects that you might have, and going to evasion 3, at that point they're actually modestly durable. Now, that's still conditional because it's only going to be summer so many times during a game, but this is the baseline is stronger. This is also a regiment that can theoretically gain healing if you're running a Runshi, or can gain cleave if you're running a Morshi. So, okay, they're still fragile. Like 170 points. I've been playing a bunch of Spires recently, and let me tell you, Evasion 2, Resolve 3 on a regiment that you are paying more than like 120 points for, runs out real fucking fast. Like the regiment, something looks at them and they disappear. Parry helps a lot, as does loose formation, because one of the weaknesses, like the weakness of an evasion regiment, is that it gets copped by a whole bunch of hits. Things like flurry or reroll 6s to hit, etc., helps push those hits through, and you can't do that now. Or you couldn't do that before either. Still, 4 wounds for 170 points, but I think you want to play these. If you're a Weavers player and you have these already, you should play them at least once, because moving 21 inches in a turn on a regiment with fly is really funny. It's really funny. It's the kind of player that you just do, and your opponent is like, oh, I had such plans, and now they are in disarray. So, okay, a regiment that is absolutely worth playing at least once. And look, March 7 Unstoppable, previously they were March 6 Unstoppable. The offensive output on them is not astounding. That's probably the biggest issue, is that, like, you can get +1 attack if you give them a +2 attacks on the command stand if you give them a seed. And they can only ever have Court of Summer, so you can never give them, actually they get shock. You can never give them any of the other courts. That's the other big change, because the current version of Weavers, the Court of Summer, is bleh, do nothing. It may as well not exist. But if these girls get shock, then they're hitting on fours, rerolling sixes on a charge. It's still not that many attacks, but you can very easily spend a token, get +2 in the command stand. At that point, you're rolling 18 attacks on a summer season. That's 18, 19, 20, 21 attacks. 21 attacks, hitting on fours, rerolling sixes, is almost as good as Supremacy Turn, Nord, Werewolves, and those things are blenders. So, okay. Well, actually, it's not as good. It's actually considerably worse because the werewolves have got, in addition to having true flurry and hitting on fours, the werewolves have impact attacks, which is what makes a big difference a lot of the time. So they're still worse than werewolves, but werewolves are one of those regiments. There's a couple of regiments in the game right now, like werewolves and assassins both come to mind, where they were probably good like one update cycle ago. But the thing about regiments that have been bad for a little while and then get buffed to being good is that players don't notice. So then the developers are like, ah, oh, no one is taking this regiment that is good. I guess it's not good. We'll keep buffing it. And that results in things like assassins being given tenacious, which is a rule that that regiment just absolutely doesn't fucking need. Anyway, the point being is that scale dancers being not quite as good as some of those very, very good regiments in other factions does not mean that they're bad. I do think that they are fragile, but there are some ways you can conditionally mitigate that. So, okay, neat, very cool. Gallo Glass Warriors. Now, these guys are new in the sense that we theoretically had rules from them before, but their models have only recently been released. So I have never played against them. So let's just take a quick look at them from first principles. March 6, Clash 4, 4 attacks, 220 points, 6 wounds, defense 4, resolve 3. So these things are just better versions, considerably better versions. Well, not considerably. These are just tougher versions of Cran Guardians, kind of by definition. By default, they are tougher versions of Cran Guardians, but they are very expensive. Clash 4, 4 attacks. Okay. Regiment counts as belonging as the same seasonal court as your Warlord, so you can give them Dread, you can give them Shock. Shock's a big fucking deal, because they have Impact, Unstoppable, Fly, and Brute Force. Okay, Mercy of the Reaper. Regiment gains access to the following Bloom effect. Spend X seed markers. I assume that means spend X seed markers from friendly regiments within 12. This regiment gains Cleave X to a maximum of 3 until the end of the round. So you can pull seed markers off of regiments to become up to Cleave 3. When performing a clash action, compare your unmodified clash to that of the target enemy regiment's highest unmodified clash. For each point of difference, you add +1 to your attack's characteristic. Alright, so sometimes that will be +3. Much of the time, in fact, a lot of the time, that will be +1 or 2 attacks. But given this is a regiment that can have shock if they are Court of Summer, or the enemy reroll resolve rolls, and actually given that you've got impacts, it's very easy to trigger that on your clashes. So this is a regiment that can do a lot of damage. It's also very durable, although you might want to get a character into these guys because same problem as with Cran Guardians, defense 4 good, resolve 3 a little bit prone to collapsing. Less prone than Clan Guardians because these guys can get hit in the flank and not suffer a penalty to your defense. But okay, this is a solid heavy regiment. They're a little bit slow. Everything else we have seen so far, like Weavers tend to be on the board relatively quickly, lots of lights, and the mediums that we've seen are either fast or have the ability to be really fast. Like if we look at the Autumn Ladies, yeah, they're just March 6, but they're March 6 up until it's Autumn, at which point they're March 9 unstoppable if they're performing a charge. They go absolute zoomies. By comparison, these guys are actually genuinely slow, and they're kind of contingent on punching down a little bit, although there are not a lot of, like, anything that is natively Clash 4, it's if there's a character, yeah, so you don't want to fight, like, if there's a regiment that has a character in them, then that character might be Clash 4. So, like, the worst possible case for these guys is fighting, like, 100 Kingdoms regiment of trash that happens to have an Errant of the Shield or something. No, he's only Clash 3. So even then, you get your +1. Yeah, so a lot of the time, these guys will have 5 attacks. Sometimes they'll have 6. 6 attacks is really solid on a regiment that can get to Cleave 3. So, okay, neat. Expensive and slow, but very dangerous. Next, we have Gallowglass Wardens. These are the ranged ones. These are the stag beetles that throw rocks. Man, so 210 points, March 6, Volley 2, Clash 2, 4 attacks. Well, they're a ranged unit. Still very durable. So this regiment is 30 points more than Cran Guardians for slightly higher durability, as they aren't built around a shield. They have the same court as your Army Warlord. A ranged regiment has relatively little to benefit from there, but that's okay. Fly, Impact 3, only Clash 2. Pick the Quarry. Draw event. So that's in place of your regular draw event, that's fine, but because if you're making a volley, there are no draw events you really actually get benefit from, other than potentially healing. Barrage 3, range 14, AP 2, Barrage 5, range 16. I am actually not sure. This is just a math problem. You're going to have to sit down with notepad and paper and figure this one out. I do the math on this ahead of time. If you play these guys, sit down and work it out for defense 4, defense 3 hardened, defense 2. Which one do you pick? I mean, I can tell you defense 2, you probably pick barrage 5, and then evasion, etc. Okay, you have to do math homework in order to play this regiment, but having done math homework, then that's good. You know the answer to this question. 2 seed markers, aim shot. Noting, I think this is terrible. Yeah, okay, so this is very funny. Assuming that there isn't a change to the core rules that allows you to resolve multiple draw events, and assuming that they don't update the bloom rules to allow you to bloom in addition to resolving other draw events, this lets you spend 2 seed markers to gain aimed shot by not picking the draw event that gives you a volley. So you just don't have a barrage, but you do have aim shot. That is very unintentional, and what that suggests to me is that there is an assumption that you can do both draw events. Maybe that's a change to the core rules that I've missed, maybe it's already happened, I don't think so, I think that restriction still exists. But after recording this video, I'll just chuck a quick note to the devs. Is this a good ranged unit? I don't know. 2 seed markers is quite a lot. Again, assuming that you can use both draw events. 16 shots. I need to go and check the seed marker rules really quickly. All right, having a look at them now. You may spend to gain one of the following effects. All right, so the 2 seed marker bloom is mutually exclusive with +2 to your barrage. They aren't cumulative. This is a really durable regiment. Like, it's really durable. It's basically paying 30 points to take some Cran Guardians and give them a gun. But, like, these are kind of just shitty Fireforged. Like, if we look at the AP2 version, Fireforged have only AP1, yeah, but they are basically as durable. There's a very small difference. They are cheaper, and they've got 5 shots rather than 3. I think these guys are kind of just shitty Fireforged. If there's a reason why Fireforged are really, really good, so that's okay. If there is a reason why these guys are not just shitty Fireforged, it's that we are playing one of the characters that allows this crop rotation, the seed redistribution, in which case having ranged regiments just pick up some tokens that you can, like, and we don't even bother. We don't even bother about using the aim shot and snaring barrage particularly often. We use these guys to harvest tokens for others or something. Maybe that's what it is. It's not bad, but 210 points is 30 points more than Cran, and the gun is fine, but even assuming the +2 seed markers is not mutually exclusive with Pick the Quarry to give themselves a barrage, yeah, they're okay. This is a little expensive for me. Alright, on to Cavalry. Scathan Riders, these are the melee moths. 150 points, 50 points, stats all seem the same. Evasion 2, Resolve 3, 5 attacks, Clash 2. However, this is now a March 8. Did they have that before? Nope, they were March 7. So that's a really big deal. They still don't have Unstoppable, but that's fine. +1 March is a pretty big upgrade. And this is now a regiment that can, for example, access Shock. Shock's a really big deal. Pathfinders, Fluid Formation, Bombing Run. Bombing Run. Once per round, when the regiment's command stand moves over an enemy, target enemy regiment suffers X hits, where X is 3 times the number of stands in this regiment. That is just way, way stronger than the current version. The current bombing run does 1 hit per stand, plus 2 hits if the enemy has, I think, plus 2 hits for each seed on the enemy. Now this just is like a full health regiment, 9 hits. Don't worry about the conditions. That's just way stronger. Or 4 wounds of healing. The old version of this was like 3 wounds or 5 wounds, so now it's 4. Okay. Yeah, way better because okay, bombing run is probably going to really annoy people, like because 9 or more, because you can put a character in these guys, and so then it's 12, and there's no maximum size to the number of hits. That might be a problem. I don't think we're going to see the fucking Mothwaffen emerging, but it is not hard to scale this regiment up. You can put a character in them as well now. You could theoretically have like Spring Court, Speed 10, zoom over something, 3x3 block of moths. Still gets the fluid formation, and that would do 27 hits to the enemy regiment in the flank. Just automatically, just move the command stand over. Probably a bit impractical to run a regiment that large, but you could do like you could do six stands initially in a 2x3 pencil formation. Get the enemy command stand. You can move the command stand over enemy regiments very easily, then swing around behind them, then fluid formation, and just casually drop 18 hits into the enemy. Or the bigger issue is that you just get enough damage that you one-tap enemies. Like, if you, I don't, I don't think this is practical, but like, let's say that there's the Nord Dog Swarm that's emerging in your metagame, or so, like there's there are some really good Evasion 2 light regiments right now. What if we just take a regiment that does like 30 hits and just kills them from 16 inches away? Probably an overinvestment. How many points is that? It's like 500 points for a regiment of that size. But then you also have a regiment of 10 moths that can be given shock. This is probably jank. I hope they tested that, because there is no maximum here. And I kind of wonder if there should be a maximum. This is the kind of rule, unconditional automatic hits. This is the kind of rule that should sort of have a maximum. Like, this is, if we just had a regiment, like if there was a regiment in the game that was trample 3 and cost this, people would be like, oh, that's a bit good. So, interesting. Probably quite a good regiment. Scanio Riders, these are the ranged ones. Same stats as before, but +1 march. These guys have got same rules as before: aim shot, barrage, fly, opportunist, acute sensors. This is the shittiest rule in the entire game, and I hate its existence. Every regiment that they have given acute sensors to is materially worse in a less interesting way than fluid formation. Fluid formation was only ever a problem on melee regiments that used it for extreme threat range. And they changed that, they fixed that with the 3-wide stand. Why did they also just fuck every interesting ranged regiment with fluid formation? Who had the hate boner on the design team for an enemy like shooting and running away? I hate this rule. I hate this rule so much. This is the worst rule that's ever been added to the entire game, apart from when they briefly made the supremacy role independent of your card count. And look, even that, I liked that because I was a 100 Kingdoms player running 16, 17 activation list. It was obviously and objectively bad for the game. I really liked it. But I think I don't think I've ever heard anyone say something good about acute sensors. Mostly because it's an objective nerf. No one ever says nice things about objective nerfs to their regiment. I don't even have nice things to say about acute sensors. Like, even if I put on my most biased and partisan hat, I don't like seeing acute sensors on enemy regiments, because there was never a fluid formation range regiment that like shit me to tears. You could always ultimately chase them down and grab them. It was like a high skill cap. Anyway, fuck acute sensors. However, fire in advance, that's really interesting. Sowing shot, when this regiment is volleying the enemy from their flank or rear, gains AP1. This is real. Okay, so fire in advance, we have to remember, is not fire and run away. It's fire and advance. But on a March 8 regiment, Michael's going to be happy. Michael's also a City States player. These guys are kind of just chariots now, like, in a sense. Not exactly, but kind of. If these things get in the flank, that's really fucking dangerous, because they always, You spend 1 seed marker to get the +2 attacks on the command stand, and you've got how many? Not even in effective range, you've got 12 shots on 3s with rerolls and AP1. That's very good for 150 points. So, okay, cool. It's moth stonks up on both kinds of moths. This is going to just can open to some people who didn't expect it and will have to get used to dealing with it because you cannot let these things into the flank. It's hard to stop them as well because they like turn up off of the Pathfinder line, and because they're so cheap, devoting things to stop them from getting you is always a pain. It's a 150 point regiment, but you have to pin them back now. You cannot let them. Yeah, okay, that's really solid. Gem Red Knights, 220 points, move 7, clash 3, 5 attacks, 6 wounds, resolve 4, defense 3. I think that's broadly the same as presently. Cleave 1, unstoppable, brutal impact 2, impact 4. Yep, excellent. Can bloom, and then during a winter round, they lose unstoppable, gain juggernaut. I think the same as currently. They gain hardened. This was already a very solid regiment. I think the only really significant thing to note is that they now benefit from seasonal warlord blooms, where you can get them up to, theoretically, you can get them up to cleave 3 with the Morshi on the activated turn, but you get some healing as well. This was already a solid regiment. When they came out, people were like, maybe this will save Weavers. And of course they didn't, because a heavy regiment is never going to be the savior of a faction. You just cannot take them en masse. But yeah, okay, solid. Legit unit. More characters, because you can have a Taoshi join them now. The Taoshi has enough clash to actually make the impact solid. So, yep, broadly unchanged and good. Fianna Cavalry. Now, these do not currently exist. I'm assuming we'll see models for them relatively soon. This is mainstay flavored stats, 160 points, movement 8, bad clash, good attacks, very kind of mid stats. Regiment counts as belonging to the same court as the Warlord. Opportunist, Unstoppable, Impact, Prowl, Vanguard. Prowl, we'll remember, is that okay, so they just have Prowl natively. That's a fucking thing. That justifies 160 points. Yep. Okay. Gains Terrifying and Linebreaker, and you get so basically these always have Terrifying and Linebreaker because you can just always choose to lose Prowl until the end of the round. Probably the biggest, like, people will get this wrong, is that they arrive onto the board on speed 6 because you cannot get rid of Prowl by using Pounce on the turn you arrive because it's a draw event. I'd also note that Pounce is a draw event, whereas Pounce and Bloom are both draw events. So if you want to benefit from, like, that's very fucking awkward, actually. I'm not even sure why Pounce is a draw event. Like, it just says you can, at any point during your activation, lose it. This might be a typo. There is no reason for Pounce to be a draw event because it's at any time during your activation. So some real awkwardness there. This is probably just kind of like not thinking about this properly. Vanguard 4 is very nice. Vanguard 4 makes up for the fact that they are -2 to March on the turn they arrive. So they actually are March 8. Some awkwardness here. There's probably like a rules question to be asked about, hey bros, can we please use 2 draw events in the same action? Because the range beetles also don't work if we can't. But I am very willing to give the time of day to any regiment that has Prowl natively. Potentially really interesting. I wonder what they're riding. Cats, maybe? Anyway. Weird Cavalry, also new. Medium, 180 points. Bit more expensive, but very cheap per additional stand. March 8, Clash 3, 5 attacks, 4 wounds, Resolve 4, Evasion 2. Okay? Easy to add stands to. Counts as the same seasonal court as your Warlord. Fluid formation on a medium cavalry unit. Unstoppable and impact. That's really good. In addition, upon sending seed markers to perform a bloom event, they gain one of the following. So just one seed marker. Just prime the pump with something, and then you can give them your choice of Deadly Blades, Cleave, or Flurry. Okay, it's math time again. Do the math ahead of time to solve this math problem. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Flurry is often correct. I'm not sure about that, just have a hunch. Cleave is very good though. Deadly Blades is fine as well. The regiment has a lot of attacks. You are spending the +2 attacks from the command stand will always apply, it will multiply each of these equally. So just do your math homework. If you take this regiment, do your math homework, learn ahead of time which is mathematically optimal in which case, and the fact that they are fluid formation makes sense of the 50 points per stand, because you won't often run these guys wider. Although maybe you will. Maybe you're just being like, fuck fluid formation. I'm just going to take 5 of these and run them in a huge line. They're March 8 and Unstoppable. Like, why do I need fluid formation? Just put a character in the regiment and go ham. They resolve 4 natively. That's really nice. 180 points. Frankly, look, for a high quality regiment, 180 points is affordable. I bet these will be a dual kit with the other cavalry. 180 points is very affordable for a regiment that can blow enemies out as badly as this unit can. And March 8, fluid, 5 attacks with a leader, and the access to Deadly Blades, Cleave, or Flurry. Yeah, they're a little fragile, but Resolve Floor 4 puts a floor under it. This is probably a good unit. Alright, on to monsters, which should just be the 2 Drakai. Scoth Drake, 220 points, Heavy Monster Regiment. Which one is the Scoth Drake? We'll find out soon. I can never remember which is which. March 7, Clash 3, Volley 2. Is this the Volley one? No, it's not, so who cares about the Volley stat? Clash 3, 12 attacks, 18 wounds, Defense 3, Resolve 4, Evasion 1. Remember that we can give these guys flank now by having someone ride them. Cleave 1, Fly, Impact, counts as belonging to the same seasonal court as the Warlord, which means that we can have March 9 Drakes, or Shock Drakes, or enemies reroll their Resolve roll Drakes, or Dread Drakes. Cleave, again, remember that the Warlord bonuses, this could be Cleave 1, 2, or 3. Impact, Terrifying, Rules, Fiend Hunter, did it have that already? It did not. It did have Flawless Strikes, and it's lost that. Echoes of Whispers. Once per round, if a friendly regiment within 8 spends 3 or more seed markers, can you ever spend more than 3? As a result of activating a bloom effect? No, you can't. So I guess they're just future-proofing that. So if an enemy regiment spends 3 seed markers, this regiment heals 3 wounds. That is not. It is once per round. That's. I mean, you're going to try to be like. There's a lot of lists you could write where you'll try to be doing that a bunch. It still won't happen an enormous amount, but you can probably trigger that once per round. Okay. Whenever the regiment becomes the target of an enemy regiment's clash or volley, it gains a seed marker. So, alright. This is the first regiment that has kind of been nerfed. I say kind of because in many respects it loves the update. The fact that it is not like it previously was locked. It had to be Spring Court. It could only be Spring Court. It was a prick of a thing to get into the list. It was a good model, but it was not easy to access. Now it's much easier to access, and it has access to all of these different seasonal benefits, which is a really huge deal. It's also got Fiend Hunter, which is really good. Like, so lots to like. It's also gone from Terrifying 1 to Terrifying 2, which is a big deal and kind of makes sense given the enormous flower vagina face that it had. However, what made it such a prick of a thing before is that it healed so much. It was like multiple different rules that layered together, and the thing would heal like 7 wounds around, sometimes more, I think. It was so much. Can't do that anymore. Now it will heal, sometimes it will heal 3 from the regiment within 8. It is within 8 inches of itself, to note. So you can still heal a bunch if you take like a Runshi Warlord, etc. But you've got to work a lot harder, and it won't heal as much as it used to. What it's gained is that it is much easier to access, it's 10 points cheaper, it's more terrifying, and there are more synergies. So wins and losses on this thing, but probably still a pretty solid monster. 220 points is frankly cheap. Like, there are monsters in the game that are 240 points, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good monster, and this thing is 20 points cheaper and can do plenty of stuff. So, alright, cool. And then the Coil Drake, 220 points again. That's also a 10-point reduction. 12 attacks, 18 wounds, all the same stat line. Volley 2, this one does have a volley. This regiment counts as belonging to the same season, so that's a change as well. I think. Yes, it is, because it used to be counts as belonging to the same season as the current season in the cycle, which was quite good, but then also didn't always do things. It was weird, that rule didn't function properly. Anyway, so now just same as the Army's Warlord. Barrage 10, 10 inches, armor piercing 1. So that's +1 shot and +2 inches of range. Aimed shot, which I think it already had. cleave 1, fly, impact, and submobile. So it's a very serviceable melee creature in addition to everything else. No terror, though. This regiment, so draw events, bloom. Your bloom is that you may perform a volley action. No, draw events, bloom, and then this is floating text. I think, yeah. This regiment perform a volley action while in contact with enemy regiment, but it only performs against the enemy regiments in contact with. That's still really, really good because you just volley and clash. Like, that whole last volley is usually going to do more damage than +1 to hit on your clash attacks, so that's still really good. When this regiment performs a volley action, excluding any text character, it ignores loose formation, and every enemy regiment in its front arc within its barrage range suffers hits. Originating, I think that's meant to be like counts as originating from the flank. Counts as having performed a single volley action. Its range has increased. I saw this trigger on, like, this didn't actually, like, this seems really, really good, but in practice it was just like, yeah, it's pretty nice. It was a good rule, but that was when its barrage was a shorter range, although it did get a bonus to barrage range if you mounted it. So, okay. New rule, Devouring Molder. I think it's a new rule anyway. It's technically a new rule. The old rule required you to destroy an enemy regiment and then you healed based on seed markers, which was just like, God fucking save me. Now it's when you destroy an enemy stand during activation, you heal 1 wound per stand. You will often destroy 1 or 2 or 3 stands during an activation. If you've got a character, you might do more. So that's neat little chip healing. Actually, that could really let you blow out a flank. That's kind of cool. So both Drakes can heal now. One Drake has got Fiend Hunter and Terror 2, which is a really big deal. The other Drake has this whole ass volley shed, which is a really big deal. I think with the Spring Drake, sorry, the former Spring Drake, the Plant Vagina Face Drake, having lost its Omega heal, that was what set it apart. That was really, really good, but it was harder to access. I think we are now going to see a situation where players will pretty quickly decide which Drake they prefer, and there's going to be a consistent balancing act between the two, and it'll be difficult to avoid. No, X Drake is better, Y Drake is better. I'm not going to scroll all the way up. I've read enough already, and it's getting late. But if they gate these behind different characters, that's probably the best way to have some differentiation. So yeah, but these can be given flank. Very easy to run 2 heavies in a Weaver Court list and still be all on the field on turn 3. Maybe with 1 medium arriving late. And again, 220 points is just appealing for the cost relative to what you get here. So that's solid. All right, officers. How many officers do we have? Okay, the Wild Hunt is not currently in the army. That just solves the problem that they had with officers, where it's like, you can't proxy these officers. But proxying officers is really easy. You just paint a stripe on a regular ass miniature. Don't proxy the Wild Hunt. We haven't released the model yet. Anyway, what does the Cannon Stalker do? Each time the regiment with this officer activate, singular, probably activates, target 1 enemy regiment within 12 inches. It suffers a wound. What? What? That doesn't have any synergies with anything. That's just like, you just poke someone. I mean, I guess that, okay, strictly speaking, this is valuable, because you can take multiple of these. You just do the math. You need this thing to trigger twice, even on a cheap regiment, to have paid for itself. Most regiments run between, say, 8 points a wound to 12 points a wound. You can jab a dragon once, and technically you've done 15 points damage in some cases. But if they release a model for the Kianon Stalker and it's like 40 Australian bucks, hopefully they just don't do that. I think you could delete this from the game and no one would ever notice. Like, if this just was never a thing. It's going to be, there's a certain kind of person, like Penny in Nara, who will really like this. He's not a Weavers player, but if he was to start Weavers, he would run like 5 units with these fucking things on them and just be like, take a wound, take a wound. Because I know that because he's a Sorcerer Kings player who did the same thing with Spiteful Winds, and got great joy from it. But This can't be like, I don't know, maybe the small anguish on your opponent's face where it's just like just one wound and then what happens? Oh no, nothing else. Just take a wound, get fucked. Maybe just being able to needle someone like that is worth 15 points. 12 inches is a pretty decent range. You can take these on a couple of different units. I know you can take them on the regular Ranger skirmishers. Yeah, it's just them and then the autumn ladies who, I don't know. I guess if you've got 15 points, like it's actually probably mathematically solid, particularly on the Kern skirmishers who you're trying to have float around at like 16 inches. So actually, not even, you don't want them to get within 12. They inevitably will. Like, what is this for? What what list construction niche does a Kiernan Stalker fill other than watching the life slowly leave your opponent's eyes as the annoy just from sheer annoyance? I don't understand this as a command model. Maybe we'll see this change in future. This is fine. It's 15 points, totally fine. Nothing wrong with this as an attachment. Take it sometimes. I don't think you can target objectives with this because it's target enemy regiment. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. Weird note to end on. Very weird note to end on. Definitely given given we started really high because the seasonal rules changes, that's good shit. And then the masteries especially, where you can just make your characters into brutes or cav or similar, is like, that's good shit. Hang on, I just had an idea, I need to check something. There's probably the word non-monster in the fly thing, right? Where's cloud seeding? Yeah, non-monster regiment. Okay, good. Like this stuff here, cloud seeding, chitinous metamorphosis. This is and winter's bite to an extent. This is good shit. The season rules are good shit, and that's like those are the important changes. The rest of the army, the regiment seems solid. There's a few things where you're like, oh, that's pretty good. There's a few things where you're like, I think you're meant to be able to do 2 draw events here. There are a few things that are hilarious, but moth stonks, kern stonks. So even just the very default like starter set, the starter set box is now way more dangerous, way more solid, has actual rules. So yeah, okay. Overall conclusions. Is this army more powerful than some of the stuff that's emerging as really, really strong at the moment? No, probably not. In fact, I'm pretty sure that this army runs into, especially like the Baja Boys hit single, Nord list, for example, and just fucking disappears. Like the game progresses until turn 4 and then everything is dead because that list is really good. Oh, if you're running like the list I'm talking about there, it's 3 units of Wereworks, 2 units of Fenrir, 3 units of Golta, 1 unit of Raiders, 1 Ice Giant, Shaman in the Raiders, and then 2 Werewolf Warlords, Warlord, Warlord. And what that list does, it also takes the mastery that lets you auto on an additional Half-Blood. So the army is always all on the field incredibly fast. It usually has a massive activation deficit during the early turns, then it equalizes. It uses that activation deficit to posture the Werewolves and the Golta in threat range of the enemy at about the same time. What it does is it builds up, it has activation control, usually significant, all the way through till end of turn 3, usually, and then it kind of equalizes on turn 4. What it does is it sets up, it gets a big scenario lead because Fenrir are just gods at scenario, they can reach just about any zone, and it sets up to use the Varga Lord's active supremacy to have just a bloodbath, usually on turn 4. Like if you march to meet it, it'll kill you on turn 3, but what it usually wants to do is it wants to double march the Golter on turn 2, double march the Golter forward on turn 3, and then have a situation on turn 4 where the Werewolves are all just like close to you and the Golter are not far behind. And all of those regiments on the supremacy turn get they get shock and fury. and that means that basically all of them trade up really aggressively. 160 points of Werewolves, which will be using regeneration to survive through chip damage in the early game, will trade out comfortably with regiments that are more expensive than them. And they just trade. They just have like one Werewolf regiment goes in and kills something, and then you kill another Werewolf regiment, and then the third Werewolf regiment kills something, and the total trade is in favor of the Nord player, and then the goal to hit on the same turn. And it's just like, wow, everything's dead. Like, you kill some Nord stuff, 100%, but like everything is dead, and the Fenrir are sitting there scoring scenario points like goblins, and then there's an ice giant. It's really impressive. Very, very good list. Werewolf's one of those units that are like, they kept buffing this past the point they needed to in order to make players play it, and now I have to deal with this shit. But that's the kind of regiment where I think if you run like a classic Weavers list, you're like, oh yes, everything is under control. Everything is dead. But with like them as an exception, and even in this, there are things that you can do. If you've got some good light range firepower, like the fact that Kern skirmishers actually do some damage now and can obviously shoot size 2 over each other's heads, you can do some shit with Kern skirmishers. Weavers actually have like Weavers are pretty good at having early activation control themselves if they need it. So even in that situation, I think there's probably some play. And that's one of the scariest lists I've seen post-update. So, like, Old Dominion, really, really good. Weavers have historically been solid into Old Dominion, and I think I'm not actually sure if that is going to stay the case, because these days, like, the Weavers were historically good into Old Dominion because they were good at doing ranged chip, and Brittle is now one of the things you can take advantage of to fight Old Dominion, and Weavers have to do that the normal way. But I don't see them being grossly disadvantaged in that matchup. And in fact, an autumn list could be really good into Old Dominion. So, yeah, let's tentatively go with, if nothing else, some of the silliest overcosted stuff is no longer overcosted. Morrowind, for example, pretty solid. All the characters seem good, and the army special rules and masteries work, and you can now build your army in different ways. The Winter's Bite, Cloud Seeding, and Chitinous Metamorphosis changes alone are transformative, so I think there's a lot here to be optimistic about. I think if you're a Weavers player, there's a pretty good chance your season has finally come, and I think, having read through this, we are at an end of the time of the tournament objective of Weavers players simply not being to come dead last, which is good. That's kind of what we want. So, Weavers players, congrats. This is a cool looking, like, I'm happy for you. This is a cool looking army update. I think we're in a good spot. Hope this works out well. For everyone else, hope you've enjoyed this read through of the patch notes. We're an hour and a half deep. If you did like this, go ahead, hit like, click subscribe, blah, blah, blah. This is primarily a channel that covers multiple war games, but Infinity is our main jam, but we do cover Conquest stuff from time to time, so I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you did and want to support the channel, you can do so via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below or becoming a channel member on YouTube. But regardless, mostly I hope that you've enjoyed this, and if you're a Weavers player, that you're looking forward to getting games in. And with that, that wraps up this video about the Weavers Army update. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.